very much.
Oh.
Ya, soy encargado de... Y quería preguntar en cuanto a los encargados de muchos también.
Exacto.
Eso, vale. Acabado del cuarto.
El señor Brian está con el presidente.
Está con el presidente, vale. ¿Y dónde nos sentamos por ahí?
Sí, por favor, por favor.
Cualquier, vale.
Yo no voy a estar.
Invitamos al señor presidente. Estimados y distinguidos representantes permanentes, representantes alternos, señores observadores permanentes, señor secretario de Asuntos Jurídicos de la Secretaría General, doctor Jean-Michel Arrigui, que en esta oportunidad representa a la Secretaría General, señoras y señores, tengo el honor, en nombre del Consejo Permanente, de saludar y ofrecer una cálida bienvenida a su excelencia, el presidente de la República de Guyana, el señor Donald Ramotar, y agradecerle su visita a nuestra casa, la Casa de las Américas. También este saludo es extensivo de una cordial bienvenida a los honorables miembros de la delegación que le acompañan. Sean todos, señor presidente, y sus distinguidos acompañantes muy bienvenidos. Mr. President, the Permanent Council welcome you most cordially today on this your first visit to the Organization of American States. With all the respect that the inter-American community feels toward a leader who, through democratic election, has come to occupy the highest political office in his country in order to lead it along the road to progress and peace. Tengo ahora el gusto de presentar al señor secretario de Asuntos Jurídicos, doctor Jean-Michel Arrigui, quien, estando a cargo de la Secretaría General, ofrecerá las palabras iniciales de esta sesión. Puede hacer uso de la palabra.
His Excellency President Donald Ramotar of Guyana, President of the Permanent Council, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister of Finance, Ambassador, Permanent Representative, and alternate representatives, friends, all. On behalf of Secretary General José Miguel Insulza and Assistant Secretary General Albert Bandín, it is my pleasure to extend a very cordial welcome to His Excellency President Donald Ramotar of Guyana on this, your first visit to the House of the Americans. This is your home, Mr. President, and we value your interaction with the representatives of member states. We are particularly honored that you have chosen to visit UAS just months after being sworn in as President of Guyana on December 3, 2011. This confirms important priority which Guyana attached to hemispheric relation and the UAS in particular as the premier multilateral entity for dialogue and engagement. Mr. President, your ascent to the highest office in Guyana comes after many years of work as a political activist. We note that you have occupied many connections, the governing party, and this, we believe, would augur well for the position you now occupy. Since joining the OAS in 1991, Guyana has been an important and active partner, contributing meaningfully to many of the debates within the Council of the organization. The country has held the chairmanship of the Permanent Council of the OAS on no less than 3 different occasions. Only recently, Ambassador Carter guided the work of the Council during a time of heightened interest on important matters affecting the priority areas of the OAS. And for many years, a distinguished lawyer from our country, Dr. Ramotar was member and chairman of the Inter-American Judicial Committee. Mr. President, Guyana's commitment to regional integration is manifested in many ways, but no more so than having been a founding member of CARICOM and host of its secretariat. Indeed, the membership of the various CARICOM countries in the OAS has served to strengthen our hemispheric organization, making it more diverse and relevant. Further, Guyana's leadership role in such global matters as environmental and sustainable development issues is also well established, beginning with the 1992 World Conference on Rio de Janeiro and encompassing its more recent activism in the preparation for the Rio +20 conference next June. We therefore look forward to your country's continued engagement with the OAS and wish to assure you that the organization stands ready to work with you in advancing Guyana's development. Once again, Mr. President, welcome to the House of the Americas. Thanks.
Gracias a doña Michelle Rivy. Señoras y señores, es para mí una especial ocasión y privilegio y un singular regocijo el contar entre nosotros al señor presidente de Guyana, el señor Ramotar, un digno representante del pueblo de la tierra de muchas aguas. A solo 5 meses de haber sido elegido presidente, como ya lo ha mencionado, predecesor en el uso de la palabra, lo que demuestra la sólida relación que existe entre su pueblo y gobierno y la Organización de los Estados Americanos. Nuestro ilustre visitante, el señor Donald Ramotar, es economista, graduado de universidades de su país, así como de la ex Unión Soviética. Su Excelencia, el presidente de Guyana, asumió esta alta investidura el 3 de diciembre de 2011, posición en la que sigue a los recordados Chedi y Janet Yagan. El presidente de Guyana tiene una larga y sólida carrera política al servicio de su país. Dentro del People's Progressive Party ocupó varias posiciones hasta llegar a ser designado en 1993 como su secretario ejecutivo. Fue miembro de la Asamblea Nacional en repetidos periodos y fue también asesor político del presidente Barrat Yadeb. Al iniciar su administración, el presidente Ramotar determinó que otorgaría prioridad al fortalecimiento de sólidas políticas económicas, así como aquellas sociales enfocadas a la vivienda, la educación y la salud, así como a la lucha contra la corrupción y el tráfico de drogas. Mr. President, you have an enviable history of long and honorable service to your country and the people. And for this, we salute you. As we welcome you, we are delighted to have among us a representative presenta a usted, señor presidente, a un país en el cual las distintas culturas que lo conforman constituyen el más importante componente del potencial humano de su pueblo. Ciertamente, la condición de una plural y armónica cultura guyanesa ha venido enriqueciendo por muchos años el cónclave de Estados miembros. Sus consideraciones, debates y decisiones en esta organización, la participación del representante permanente de Guyana, nuestro estimado amigo, el embajador Carrán, ha sido siempre un aporte imponderable para el análisis de los temas prioritarios de nuestra agenda. De ello dio muestras reiteradas durante la reciente presidencia de este Consejo, que desempeñó con sabiduría diplomática y sagacidad política. The Caribbean is an important part of the Western Hemisphere and of this organization. Over the past years, it has become more involved and it has made many substantial contributions to our activities and initiatives, and Guyana, as part of the Caribbean, is an essential part of the process. President Ramotar, your presence here today is a manifestation of the commitment of your country and your government to hemispheric solidarity. Furthermore, it's an indication of the importance that you have attached to the fostering and nurturing relations among the countries of the hemisphere. Sea este, pues, señor presidente, un saludo a su presencia en esta casa, así como un homenaje a Guyana, la tierra de ríos y planicies, y a su pueblo, el que como un pueblo y una nación está forjando un único destino. Señor presidente, puede hacer uso de la palabra. Mr. President, you have the floor.
Mr. Chairman of the Permanent Council, representative of the Secretary General, permanent and alternate representatives, prominent observers, representatives of international and regional organizations, OAS staff members, special guests, ladies and gentlemen all. At the outset, I wish to state my deep appreciation for the warm welcome that you have accorded me, and to express my humble gratitude that you have convened this special protocolary session in my honor. I greatly value the occasion to meet such a distinguished gathering in this historic mansion, which embodies the spirit of our inter-American community. I am especially pleased to be able to discourse with you again so soon after our meeting of heads of governments during the 6th Summit of the Americas in Cartagena. We meet again in the context of changing global and regional relationships. Notwithstanding the recent economic downturn, most of our countries have achieved substantial progress in managing our economies and in the reduction of poverty and inequality within the framework of general stability and democracy. These factors have contributed to a stronger pursuit of political and economic integration among our nations, along with a growing self-confidence. But not all current developments are favorable. For instance, the spread of criminal violence climate change, and persistent poverty continue to cause deep concern. These factors are occurring alongside the emergence of several new regional organizations, and these circumstances are affecting the way our nations relate to one another, as was evident at the 6th Summit of the Americas. I wish to point out that much of the crimes and violence that have been caused by the trade in narcotic drugs. In this area, we need close cooperation and joint activities to defeat the merchants of death. Let me take this opportunity to commend the government and people of Colombia for the outstanding organization and hospitality which they displayed in order to facilitate those vital deliberations in Cartagena. In our estimation, it is essential that there be full implementation of the mandates which were adopted at the summit regarding the integration of infrastructure, citizen security, poverty, inequality, and inequity, disaster risk reduction and management, and information communication technologies. We particularly welcome the climate of tolerance and respect for differences of opinion, which was evident during the full and frank discussions that took place at the summit. The unifying vision of the Americas, which was so positively and eloquently articulated by President Juan Manuel Santos, is one which we in Guyana also hold dear, and one which we would encourage all others to embrace. Ladies and gentlemen, when Guyana joined the OAS in 1991, we did so seeking to advance our commitment to achieving peace and justice, solidarity and collaboration, partnership for development, regional security, and to defend the independence of its member states. With our subsequent return to the Forum of Democratic Nations in 1992, we renewed our commitment to the promotion and protection of democracy and human rights. The restitution of democracy to our nation and the strengthening of its democratic process were achieved after arduous political struggles spanning 4 decades. This achievement was preceded by a difficult extrication from the clutches of colonialism in 1966. Consequently for us, independence and democracy are committed goals and cherished ideals which we constantly strive to preserve, strengthen, protect, and expand in keeping with both our constitutional obligations as well as our commitments to the Charter of the OAS, the Inter-American Democratic Charter, and other regional and international instruments. Even your strongest detractors will admit that the OAS electoral observation mission have rendered valuable support to member states who wish to improve their electoral systems. Guyana can testify to the important role which is performed by these missions, as was exemplified by the OAS observance of our November 2011 regional and national elections. My presence here today is an acknowledgement of the role which the OAS has played in the re-establishment and strengthening of democracy in my strengthen democracy and to make it irreversible. Mr. Chairman, no discussion about democracy in this hemisphere of ours can be situated outside the context of our intolerable levels of poverty. When 57 million people, or 11% of our population, live on less than $1 a day, and 23%, or 132 million people, exist daily on less than $2 a day, surely we can consider no other option in this advanced technological age than to rid our region of poverty, reduce inequalities, and obtain decent standards of living for our people. Let us resolve that poverty eradication be the historic task of our generation. Inasmuch as democracy cannot be safeguarded without reducing poverty, neither can poverty be effectively combated without addressing inequality. So long as the richest 1/10 of the population of our region earns 48% of the income, and the poorest 1/10 earn 1.6%, the war against poverty can only result in a victory for poverty. Here at the OS, we can and should do more to reduce poverty and inequality by influencing policies which would promote technological advances, respond more effectively to natural disasters, and orchestrate the transfer of resources to reduce disparities. The OAS can further bolster efforts to combat poverty and inequality by guiding practices aimed at conflict prevention, lifting environmental standards, and promoting sustainable development with social justice. It is important too that in whatever model of socio-economic development that we pursue, job creation must be an essential aspect. This is vital in the fight against poverty and crime in our region. For Guyana, no priority is greater than to combat poverty, extreme poverty, inequality, and social exclusion. This can be done through policies that promote economic growth, access to education, health care, and housing in order to better achieve sustainable development with justice. A critical component of these efforts are initiatives to promote social protection and economic development among vulnerable groups with a gender perspective, such as our own Women of Work program, which we have started, which is working well, which teaches skills to single mothers and provides finances for them to start businesses. Many countries in our region are making progress from programs such as these, which are designed to propel destitute households out of the poverty cycle. These successes point to the need to strengthen inter-American cooperation in development and social protection in order to improve human and institutional capacity building efforts. The critical importance of development to democracy as well as to multidimensional security compels the OAS to maintain and strengthen the role it plays in sustainable development in accordance with the provisions of its charter. It bears reputation that since poverty poses the most potent threat to democracy and security in the hemisphere, it can be effectively addressed only by means of hemispheric cooperation. Such cooperation has been in evidence by our commitment to support Haiti in its reconstruction and development process. In CARICOM, we have signed a memorandum of understanding as a vehicle for strengthening our support to Haiti, particularly in the area of institutional strengthening and capacity building. We are continuing to integrate Haiti into our community and to advocate to the international community on our behalf. In this regard, we call on all international community to make good on its pledges to Haiti expeditiously and to provide the resources to strengthen and empower the country's institutional structure and capacity. The multidimensional threats to security, some new and some old, spawn a multitude of political, economic, social, health and environmental challenges to our security and stability. For a region with a homicide rate which is twice the global average, it must be acknowledged that certain aspects of insecurity, such as transnational organized crime, are posing ever more serious challenges. The end result is that factors such as crime and violence, along with the natural disasters, economic shocks and climate change, are having too serious an impact on the development prospects of many of our countries. This is especially true for the smaller and more vulnerable among us. For the small island states and low-lying coastal states of the region, these threats are multiplied due to the special vulnerabilities of these states. The countries of the CARICOM region note with satisfaction that the special security concerns of the small island states and low-lying coastal states of our region form a structured part of the OAS security agenda. These threats should be a matter of serious concern to countries large and small, since the stability of the small island states are integral to the security of the hemisphere as a whole. Insecurity arising from climate change is particularly notable. National authorities and the scientific community are agreed that the less developed countries and communities in the region are already suffering from the impact of climate change. These impacts are likely to reduce agricultural productivity and water availability, cause damage to biodiversity, coastal erosion, and coral bleaching, increase vulnerability to natural disasters, and destabilize the physical and socio-economic conditions of entire populations. According to the World Bank figures, the loss of tourism alone to CARICOM countries is projected at $4 billion, and climate change-related disasters such as floods and hurricanes at $5 billion. Guyana is historically committed to work towards the preservation of the environment and the reduction of the negative impact of climate change. Our country has placed the protection of sustainable management of its forests as an overarching national priority. A major initiative taken by Guyana to address climate change was the launching of the Avoiding Deforestation Policy in 2008 and the Low Carbon Development Strategy in 2009. These strategies set out a new development path for Guyana based on developing our forests, which constitute 80% of our country, to mitigate climate in return for receiving payments from the world for forests provide. This will be done without compromising our sovereignty over the forests or affecting the development process of our people. The low-carbon development strategy sets out a pathway to a new economy which builds future prosperity that is low deforestation, low carbon and climate resilient. Other Caribbean countries such as Barbados, Jamaica, Suriname and St. Kitts and Nevis are also in the process of adopting green economy strategies. Guyana's role in the regional effort to combat climate change stands as a leading example to other developing nations in demonstrating that the creation of a low deforestation, low carbon, climate resilient economy can be achieved without sacrificing the development aspirations of the inhabitants of the forest. While Guyana appreciates the continuing relevance of the OAS work in human rights and democracy, we believe that there is scope for deeper OAS involvement in supporting the efforts of the Caribbean in addressing sustainable development challenges, such as the changing climate, renewable energy, hazard risk management, land and biodiversity degradation, and environmentally sound trade, all of which fall under the remit of the OAS agenda for sustainable development. We urge the support of the global community for these efforts. The best way to sustain the gains which have been made in the area of human rights, democracy and peace is through sustainable development that keep the human being at the center. In order to further address these issues, Guyana looks forward to participating in the upcoming Central General Assembly in Cochabamba, which turns a spotlight on the vital question of food security. The government of President Evo Morales should be commended for selecting this timely and important topic, which is a matter of great interest to the countries of the CARICOM sub-region. Even though we may be heartened by the efforts which are being made in the direction of eradicating extreme poverty and hunger, in keeping with the Millennium Development Goals, these trends have been accompanied by increases in nutrition-related diseases. Moreover, while many countries in CARICOM are currently in recession, the region's food import bill is between $3 and $4 billion a year. Food prices are spiraling upwards, but the beneficiaries are not the families of ordinary farmers as one would hope. In fact, the windfall is being reaped by speculators who have broken the link between production and demand, or in some cases by producers who have shifted production away from human consumption to biofuel production. In CARICOM, we have endorsed the Regional Food and Nutrition Security Policy and the action plan which were inspired by my predecessor in office, President Jacques Biot. The policy is geared to address the major food and nutrition security challenges in the community. It aims to achieve food availability, food access, proper utilization for good health, nutrition and well-being, as well as stable and sustainable food supplies at all times. While we view the food situation as serious, it is quite possible that it can get worse. The world now has 7 billion people. In the next 3 to 4 decades, another billion will be added. We can therefore see this as an opportunity as well. Many of us I trust that the negotiations over the Declaration of Cochabamba will find consensus, bearing in mind that questions remain as to whether we are moving at the required pace to solve the problem of food security. We must avoid at all costs the specter of our citizens taking to the streets to protest hunger by providing workable plans to improve food supply and reduce the effects of hunger and poor nutrition. Mr. Chairman, we are mindful of the challenges which are being faced by the OAS. The organization remains the principal forum for hemispheric dialogue, for protecting and advancing democracy and human rights, and for promoting regional development and security. We hope that after the conclusion of the General Assembly, you will be able to successfully conclude the program of rationalization and streamlining upon which you have embarked in order to fashion a more dynamic organization with a more adequate profile in the region's affairs. This can be helped by resolving the most important issue that has impacted on our relations, that is the participation of Cuba in the next summit. We think that Cuba's exclusion came at the time of the Cold War. This is now ended. We have no basis to exclude this country any longer. After all, Cuba has made great contributions to developing the human capital in our region, in particular in health and education. It is time to leave the Cold War mentality behind and totally unite our America. Ladies and gentlemen, it goes without saying that the key to sustaining and expanding the gains which our hemisphere has achieved over the past several years lies in further strengthening and deepening the integration process. Guyana's geographic situation is ideally suited to this purpose. We are hosts of the headquarters of the CARICOM and are simultaneously members of the Amazon Cooperation Treaty Organization. Guyana is the only English-speaking country to have hosted the secretariats of the Rio Group and UNISOR. Of the three countries with whom we share borders, one is Dutch-speaking, another Portuguese-speaking, and the third is Spanish-speaking. Our rich multi-ethnic and multi-religious culture fully reflects both our Caribbean identity as well as our strong Native American heritage. Generations of Guyanese have seen themselves as the bridge between Latin America and the Caribbean. Our post-independence generation is translating that ambition into reality. Guyana stands willing and ready to play its part to invigorate the regional integration process. We are ready to cooperate with you inside and outside of the OAS to ensure that the citizens of our hemisphere live prosperous, fulfilled lives, enjoy the rights and freedoms to which they are justly entitled. I thank you for your attention.